outlandishly large with every passing year. The record book tells us exactly what he accomplished, and it was fantastic. He was part of what at the time was one of the top football programs in the South, if not the country. And he scored the only touchdown in what many believe was, still is, and quite possibly always will be the greatest upset in the history of the college game. Hear now the story of Bo McMillin. To this day, it's still called the greatest upset in the history of college football. Tiny Center College, the Praying Colonels, shocking the mighty Harvard Crimson in 1921.
It put Center on the map. The closest analogy I could come today would be if a 1AA kind of team beat University of Alabama today.
If you study that the Center came from a little college town that really basically challenged Harvard, which would be like today us challenging Alabama and saying we can beat you.
Well, I know it's upset of the century. I know Harvard won't talk about it even now.
First 6-0 victory in 21 over Harvard was the football shot heard around the world.
Leading the way that afternoon in Boston was Center's quarterback, three-time All-American Bo McMillin.
His name kind of resonated within the whole kind of media, you know, the Bo McMillin, kind of like what Babe Ruth was.
In terms of somebody who, in his era, was as well-known a sports figure as there was. We've not produced anything like him before since.
Had an incredible impact not only for Danville and Center College, but really for the state of Kentucky. I mean, he represented the state of Kentucky and kind of put that whole transitions of football in the state of Kentucky nationally.
McMillin was known as much for his athletic ability as he was his moral code, a true Southern gentleman who always put the team first, not unlike a certain modern-day quarterback who excelled at the college level.
Tim Tebow brought a kind of a moral value to the game, and that's what Bo McMillin did during that time. I mean, he was a sportsman, and he played with great sportsmanship and expected his teammates to play that way.
Coaches weren't allowed to coach their players during the game, send in plays, that kind of thing. That today, I don't say players don't have to think today, certainly they do, but the coaches couldn't run the game the way they do today, and Bo was the quarterback, so he had to be the coach on the field in a way that's not expected today.
Perhaps that is why, when the upset was complete, the crowd reacted the way it did. The Center administration had forbidden its students to cut class on Friday to travel north, so naturally the fans were overwhelmingly in favor of Harvard. And still, when the game was over, they rushed the field and carried McMillin off on their shoulders.
These were Harvard fans. I mean, it's hard to imagine, the Kentucky fans carrying a UT quarterback off the field after a game, but that's what happened that day. And the Northeastern schools absolutely ruled the world in college football, and for a small Southern college to come in and beat Harvard in their backyard, in their house, just nothing like it has happened since.
McMillin, a coach on the field as a player, went on to a successful coaching career himself at several stops, including a 14-year stint at Indiana, where he led the Hoosiers to their only outright conference title.
The Big Ten championship came to Indiana in 1945. Then I realized with all the publicity that came with it, in the newspapers, with his picture in the paper so much, and that was a very exciting time for us. And one thing I did learn from him is, unlike others, his door at the office at Indiana University, the door was always open. The players could come and talk with him about anything. And I think that was important to them. And they turned out to be, most of them, I guess all of them, successful men. Oh, he loved his players.
McMillin died way too soon, stricken by cancer at age 57. But the work he did on the football field, especially on October 29, 1921, will live forever. Bouvier.
father, Bill McMillin, inducted into the Kentucky Athletic Hall of Fame. For this distinction, I thank you. My father was an extremely entertaining speaker, and you might see that this trait was not inherited by this guy. But I'm delighted to try. It makes me both happy and proud to know that my father's accomplishments are still remembered almost a century after he scored that touchdown that enabled this little center college to defeat Harvard, the reigning champs, in 1921. My family ties to the Bluegrass State have continued in other ways as well. My oldest son, here with me tonight, graduated, like my father, from Center College in Danville. Both my sister and I graduated from Nazareth Academy at Bardstown. 4 of my grandsons are still in high school, and I hope at least one of them will choose Center as the next step in their education. While at Center, Daddy and Center's praying colonels defeated Indiana University. And interestingly, 20 years later, he would be coaching at IU and would lead them to the Big Ten Championship. What great training he had here in Kentucky. Dick Gabriel has asked me how it was to have a famous father. And I have to say with all honesty, I don't really know. I never thought of him as famous. He was just Daddy to me. He was a typical father of his era, a provider, disciplinarian, and role model. As an adolescent in Bloomington, while Bo was coaching at IU, I did recognize that we had a good life, full of wonderful things and unique experiences. The comfortable life that he was able to provide for his family, my mother, my 4 siblings, and me, was probably unimaginable to the boy raised in poverty in rural Texas over 100 years ago. He'd come a long way. His mother would be proud of him. I know I am, for all he did for us, for Center, for Kentucky, and for football. Organized sports has been an important part of our family's life since I was a child. As children, we played football, basketball, field hockey, diving, tumbling, and even half-court girls basketball. My own 3 children and 7 grandsons have participated in sports as diverse as football, basketball, baseball, gymnastics, swimming, wrestling, lacrosse, hockey, tennis, and competitive skateboarding. The wide-ranging benefits of sports are well documented. Ceremonies like tonight's help spread and support the influence of sports, and I feel privileged to be associated with this event and the Kentucky Athletic Sports Hall of Fame. 92 years after his celebrated touchdown and 61 years after his death, the very fact that people still remember my father Bo's accomplishments warms my heart. Thank you.
She was very nervous about her speech, and I thought she did a great job. Me, not so much. I missed a couple of you. Representing Bill King,